I'm so interested in what you're saying about community building and community development. And what it makes me think is that the business of PeopleSmart really comes into this interesting transition that we're going through in South Africa generally. Obviously, we're 30 odd years into democracy, but we have so much of that legacy that still bedevils us, that still seems to haunt us in some ways. And we know that this impacts on the economy. The fact that you're involved in people development and community development talks to that need and talks to fulfilling that need. And I'm also interested in the work you do with women, because we've got this legacy of such oppression of women. I know you're very involved in the woman in mining space, for example, so these are touch points in our country that we really need to address. We have to take this issue of systemic abuse of women and this issue of systemic poverty in communities seriously. And businesses have a big role to play. So perhaps you can just drill down into that. Let's talk into the woman in mining issue in particular. How are you finding mining organizations stepping up to the plate to protect women? And are they? Do we have what do we still need to be doing?
Thank you, Justin. Again, a great question. I think what is wonderful is that our legislation, again, is so enabling. And specifically within the mining arena, the DMRE is really clear about women, protecting women, increasing representation of women in mines, ensuring that we have protection. There was a recent article that we had responded to in the Sunday Times that spoke about putting in more safety measures for women in underground mining. And that could be whether it's lighting, buddy system, panic buttons. And I think that's a great first step. I think we have to ensure the health and safety of women first as a priority. What I am finding is that how do we move beyond compliance? So yes, it's important for mines to have women in mining committees, but sometimes that's where it starts and ends, and we have the annual, Women's Day celebration. And how do we move beyond that? Protect women, ensure that they're safe, but also enable them to thrive. So what is our representation of women at the highest levels of leadership in our organizations? How are we as leaders creating space for women to have voice? And that has been very intentional. It can be with small things. You're in a meeting and you allow the woman to speak first in a meeting, and you're intentional about that. How do we ensure that women and men are championing women within an organization? So we do a lot of work around, for example, awareness and what are the things you can do to champion women? How do you ensure that women are safe? And often it's going back to basic. We talk about safety and health. We're doing basic things around, okay, what is sexual harassment and how do you define it? And what is your policy saying? And if we don't get that right, it makes it very difficult to do everything else. And so we do a lot of that work, and we're encountering men and women who just are unaware. They don't know what the appropriate behaviors are, basic things like that. And I think that's important. We have to ensure that the environment is safe. And then we have to also ensure that everybody in an organization, both men and women, champion that cause. So what we do in Women in Mining is we work with Women in Mining committees. We ensure that leadership champions it right from the start. We create a holistic Women in Mining strategy with key themes for the year that are rolled out. And it's structured so that it's not just a compliance tick the box exercise, that there are actually targets to work towards. Women and men can champion this cause because it benefits everybody.
Yeah, and it's about it becoming a lived value, isn't it? I think so often, and you refer to that annual Women's Day event, or we could even talk about the 16 days of activism against the abuse of women and children. And those are all important things, but they're not having the impact that we need them to have. And so I think what I'm certainly noticing in business as well is that we're needing this to become a daily walk. It can't just be a monthly thing or an annual thing. It's got to be daily. And so I'm very encouraged to hear that there are organizations out there who are taking it that seriously. I'd like to just know a little bit about yourself. I mean, you referred to yourself as an industrial psychologist. I know from the work that we've done together that you are a data-driven person. It's not just going to be anecdotal. We're gonna get stuck into really what the issues are in an organization and what interventions are most appropriate to have the highest level of impact. So just finally, how do you work with an organization? What's the process? If I was to come to you and say, we want to really develop our people, where would you begin, and where would you take them?
First and foremost, I like what you said. We don't come in knowing it all, and nobody has all the answers. So it's coming in and saying, let's understand what the issues are. And each organization is so unique. The challenges are unique. And so we never come in saying, okay, this is what you got to do off the shelf, kind of solutions. We'll come in and understand what that is. Whether an organization, there's people do many surveys, we do our own surveys, but we'll also build on what organizations have done, or even listening to people within an organization, running a series of focus groups just to understand what are the burning issues, what are the things that are keeping you up at night, what is working really well. That, again, there's a lot of things that are working well for organizations to thrive. So building on that, and then what are the things that we can improve on, and how do you feel that we should tackle this as well, because people have the answers. So going into it knowing that the answers are there. It's just about asking the right questions to get people to think about it, and then working with them to find the solution. So we would come in, understand that, present that back to your leadership team, getting their insight as well, and recommend a few next steps. And those are often co-creating, whether it's a strategy, whether it's a program, an intervention, and that could take many forms, whether that is learning and development, running a series of leadership development workshops, or coaching, or putting in a mentorship system, but allowing organizations to lead that. And I feel very strongly about that as well. How do we capacitate leaders within organizations to do that work? And so even with our interventions, we really try, how do you capacitate local champions or leaders within an organization to drive the intervention? Because that process of leaders engaging with people, whether it's on health, whether it's on safety, whether it's on wellness, whether it's on women in mining, is far more powerful than having someone from the outside coming in to do it. And we support that process. And then the other element that we always consider is sustainability of an intervention and managing the change of an intervention. And I think that without clear engagement around that, to embed learnings, to drive learnings, to be constantly speaking about it, I think it often falls off the bus. And we know that when there's a void of communication, or a void, and this distance, that people make up their own stories, whether it's true or not. We need to complete the picture. And so how do organizations manage that narrative, embed learnings through regular communication and engagement? I think engagement is critical. How are leaders engaging with people? So for example, with a lot of our safety interventions, we allow leaders to engage with their people, and safety is just the vehicle. But the powerful thing that's happening is you are learning about teams and what's going on in your organization through engaging around safety. And so what often happens is we hear leaders say, wow, I learned so much from this process. I had no idea this was going on, simply because they are the ones that are actually doing the engagement. And so how do we create structures for leaders to engage their teams more and to connect?
Yeah. Fantastic. Tegan, thank you so much for this time together. Viewers who are out there watching this can get more information on PeopleSmart on the website, which is www.peoplesmart.global. I know you have a very strong LinkedIn presence. You're doing a lot of writing, and people can go and see a lot more about what's going on at PeopleSmart. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Justin.